Hi everyone, we hope you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit so far. Just before we jump into the next session, we're so excited to announce the launch of Customer Marketing Core Certified. With 55 chapters and 13 modules alongside fireside chats with contributors from Lessonly, Qualtrics, Hotjar, PitchBook and more, we guarantee you'll receive all the actionable learnings you need to embody your customers and elevate your role. This certification will equip you with knowledge of the most up-to-date customer marketing trends and includes modules on personas, cross-selling and upselling, advocacy and community, storytelling, engagement and retention, just to name a few. Our brand new course will be launching on April 27th, so be sure to pre-register now to save $100. I'll be posting the link in the comments, so keep your eyes peeled. But for now, back to the Customer Marketing Summit.
According to Forrester, high-performing organizations are 3 times more likely to report a significantly greater investment in customer marketing. So what's the size and makeup of your customer marketing team? Whatever it is, this session is going to help you.
Hi, welcome to our panel discussion today. We're talking about building and structuring your team for success. My name's Chad Mack, with Director of Customer Marketing at Dell Technologies. I'm joined today by my co-panelists Annalisa and Elizabeth, and we're excited to share some of our key learnings with you. And so why don't we just jump right in? Annalisa, you want to introduce yourself and we'll kind of go from there?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Annalisa Ariano. I'm head of customer marketing at Filevine. I'm the first ever customer marketing hire here and have just started to recently build out a team, and I'm based in Salt Lake City, Utah.
And hello, everyone. Elizabeth Raffa. I'm in charge of customer marketing at HackerOne, where we are helping the world build a safer internet by giving organizations access to the largest global community of ethical hackers. Based in Denver, Colorado. I've been with the company for just over a year, but I've been working in marketing for a long time with organizations from global consultancies to pre-Series A startups, and then I landed in cybersecurity about 4 years ago and have spent the last 3 years in customer marketing. I'm really glad to be here with you both today and looking forward to our discussion.
Yay, it's so good to talk to you guys, and I'm just honestly pleased that we can have this discussion with such a range of us in different industries, right? So as I mentioned, my name is Chad Mack. I work for Dell Technologies. I manage a team of customer marketers. We're focused on Dell's enterprise business products and solutions. So think of Dell's rugged laptops all the way up through Dell's cloud offerings or servers or storage offers and the like. So it's a pretty broad portfolio that my team covers. I have 12 folks that are in my immediate team, and we'll share today a few of those, the way I structured that team and thought through that when I formed it. I've been with Dell for about 2 years. I'm based out of Seattle, Washington, and yeah, I have a real passion for marketing and particularly using the great insight that your customers can provide when you do storytelling in that way, right? So yeah, today's discussion should be great. Before we jump in, let's just talk through kind of the discussion areas that I think the team and I had talked through. And we'll first kind of define what we think customer marketing is, and you'll hear our perspectives. We'll talk a little bit about process and what we've learned about running the business and in a customer marketing kind of organization. We'll talk a bit about stakeholders and partnering for success with them. Measuring success is really important, and it is to the 3 of us, and we'll share some tips there. And then last, people, right? The talent in your teams and ensuring that you form your team in such a way that those folks have opportunities to grow and be successful in their careers. That's a really important nuance as you build out your team. So I want to make sure to touch on that. Okay, so let's start first with a discussion around defining customer marketing. It means so many things to different folks. In our industry, it's broadly not even defined, I would say. I talk to so many different people in different roles, I think of it differently. So why don't we as a panel first kind of talk about what customer marketing entails at our organization, and perhaps I'll lead with this question, and then Annalisa, I'll turn it over to you. customer marketing at Dell is kind of it's a function that's existed for many, many years. And it's in its origin was referencing, right? And I think referencing is a transactional kind of more of a historic approach to a customer buys something. After they're happy, you ask them to do something on your behalf. And we shifted away from that, several years ago. And my team is no different. And my charter is that we took a co-marketing posture with our customers. So customers have so much that they can share with our other customers, but with ourselves as well. And so, yes, we tell stories with our customers. Yes, we'll partner them up with analysts and media and the like. But it's really coming from a place of the customers work with us on their solutions and their implementations. We want to learn from them in that process, incorporate them into beta programs, customer advisory boards, and that organically should turn into opportunities to co-tell our stories and then kind of develop that wheel of advocacy. So that's how we approach it here at Dell. But Annalisa, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I really like that approach. And I love your role. It sounds really fun. I'm tuning in from a Dell laptop right now.
Right.
So customer marketing at Filevine. Filevine is a legal tech software company. And again, being the first ever customer marketing hire here, I've really been building the program from the ground up. So core responsibilities are a little bit of everything, from customer events like CABs and user groups to even the annual client conference, content like case studies and testimonials, the customer reference program. We also have a customer referral program or an affiliate type of program, and then the user community as well. So I know the community is a little bit unique for some customer marketing organizations, but that does fall under some organizations, but that does fall under customer marketing for Filevine. And it's actually one of my favorite parts of the role.
I can jump in here. This is great. And I think, there's some overlap between what we're all doing, but also it's a little bit different. So here at HackerOne, I am technically a team of one right now, but really, I think of it as I lean on several different teams, just sort of depending on the activity. So I am building out a team right now. We're doing a little bit of hiring for customer marketing this year, which is really exciting. At HackerOne, customer marketing is primarily responsible for driving expansion opportunities within the current customer base and then leveraging advocates to drive brand awareness for our target audiences. So, in a couple of different buckets, it entails things like supporting sales expansion goals. And so I'm doing that by creating new enterprise customer assets in the form of stories, and blogs, and testimonials, third-party reviews, things that will drive education and then result in the upsell and cross-sell opportunities. And then supporting, big corporate initiatives for the year. So industry events. We also have some advisory boards that we work with. We host our own user conference. And so those are the places where we're telling our story on that large scale. And so making sure that we're leveraging the right kind of customer referrals, references, advocates to support those different initiatives. And then the third thing that I really think about customer marketing encompassing here is, building out metrics, data, and evidence to support the value of the platform and products for existing customers.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Your jobs seem equally interesting to me. So maybe it's just that I think we work in a cool industry, right? And it's so fascinating to hear how we all speak of it in similar ways, but slightly different, right? And we have different focus areas, but that should shift over time too. Like what I focused on with my team last year, I have different priorities this year, right? We really want to focus and lean in a little bit more on the advocacy side of what we do as opposed to the storytelling side. So there's opportunities for growth, I think, even year over year as you build your programs. You both mentioned referrals. That's something that I haven't really dived into at Dell, and I'll ping you afterward. I know a little bit more about that. So let's shift that and maybe a variation of the question. So what does structuring your team for success really mean to you? Elizabeth, do you want to take that one, and then Annalisa, and then I'll close on it?
Sure. So when you think about structuring the team, for me, there are really two things that I think about. And the first one is setting the right expectations. And so making sure that I find it to be really important that as you're building a team or building a department, especially as I'm bringing the second person in, to know what's really realistic for what I can do and what I've done at my time at HackerOne, and what I think that two of us will be able to do, and then communicating that back to leadership. When you're a small team, pretty important to keep your eye on the larger business goals and think about what you're being asked to do as new popping up or dropped onto your team, to make sure that you're always kind of focused on what will drive department goals also. And then the second one is to kind of make sure that you know what barriers you might face. And this is one that I think about a lot, especially as a growing business, a company that's really scaling. We all know the value of customers telling our stories. I think they're as good or maybe better than us. So one of the challenges that I find is that we have these great initiatives and we want customers to help us tell those stories in all of these different forums. So customer fatigue becomes a thing. And so I try to think of myself as the advocate for the advocate, and I see you both nodding along. It's just such a common issue. So, advocating for our customer advocates and making sure that we're looking at the big picture. There are certain point in time initiatives or campaigns or events, but, I know in 6 months, there's our user conference and there's, end of year goals. And so instead of being reactionary to things as they come up, that I make sure always to look at that kind of big picture.
Yeah. I love that. I have a pretty similar answer there, being a smaller team as well. Coming in, I had to tackle kind of those always on storytelling things and really building up our case studies and testimonials. And from there, it expanded into community. And then from there, it expanded into broader scope advocacy. So when I was looking at structuring a team and building it out, I really had to stop and say no to a lot of things and kind of get everything in check and build up some foundations, build a lot of trust with the organization, as well as figure out what's going to be most impactful, quickest. And so with that, it's somebody to serve as a content and community manager, and then somebody else to kind of help with the general advocacy program.
It's so fun to hear your answers because so much of it resonates. Customer fatigue is real. And I think about that a lot too. And as does my team. I think it's our responsibility to parse all the requests, right? Because everybody in your organization, all your stakeholders, all your colleagues, everybody wants something to do with the customers, and as they should, because it's a really valuable kind of resource. Now, we know though what's priority, and then additionally, we know how to manage those relationships, and our organizations are trusting us to do that. So we've got to be pretty laser focused, and ability, like you said, Annalisa, to say no is not an easy thing, but it's so critical to success. When I think about structuring the team that I run, it was a centralization kind of exercise, in that when I took over the group, they had previously reported into the business themselves. So they were respectively entrenched in the product unit groups. And then we came together in a central org. And so there was a notion of what they did and didn't do already. But I established a new charter. We decided to really hone in on what were the things we wanted to tackle and what were the things we would no longer do. So it was kind of an exercise in saying, across the board, what does the team all do? Where are those common places? What are those outliers? What do we eliminate to try and have a single organization? And then what are the KPIs that we stand up to achieve that? And it wasn't a lot of decision in terms of, well, how do I structure the business? Because the business just needed to be structured in a way that it originally supported them, right? So they had come from an organization, they stayed in support of that organization. It's just they worked in a central team. Now, I did tweak it over time, right? And when we get into the people portion of this conversation, I'll share a little bit more about building in team leads and making sure that the people in your organization have a chance to learn and grow. take on leadership kind of opportunities and develop managerial skills. And so that stuff was important too. And so I did that as I created the organization. But okay, well, really good discussion. Let's transition now. Can we talk about kind of the process, of our business and what it looks like to run the business? I know a lot of stakeholders and executives alike are always asking, what's the value of the customer marketing programs, right? How do we, in many cases, if we need more resources or if we want to expand our program or if we feel like there are strategic areas we can tackle, how do we go get more resources, right? That's a real scenario that happens to many of us every day, every year, right? So I guess that would be a question that I'll tease for you, Elizabeth. How do you show the value of customer marketing, at HackerOne? And you've spoken about more resources coming. How did you kind of use that value to position yourself for that request?
So I think there are a lot of ways you can do this. And for HackerOne, it really, depends on the OKRs that, I'm tracking towards. For me, within a matter of months of joining the company, I was able to take all the data tracking and analysis that I was doing, share that information with the broader company, and sort of justify that second hire, which was fantastic. The way I did this was really just simply taking the volume of marketing activities that were requiring time and attention, putting that information into a database, and then sharing out monthly reports. What that enabled me to do was show that I was spending about 35% of my time just making connections in email and Slack for various customer marketing needs. Then I took that output, which were the completed advocate activities, which we tie back to ARR or other metrics internally. And I could show that the value that I was influencing in upsell, expansion, and referral opportunities really justified the need for another team. If I'm getting X value of my time with 35% of my time invested, then it's pretty easy to, think that if you can double that relatively easy with another person, and then you have the ability for the leader of the team to be focusing on more strategic activities, long-term strategy, meeting more demand from the team, we can help scale the business. And so, for us, that worked out pretty well.
Awesome. Yeah, I love this question because I feel like it's a constant battle type of question. So coming into my organization, I really face the challenge of helping people figure out what customer marketing actually is. And if you were to ask the sales team or a sales member a year ago, they'd probably just say case studies and that's it. And they would call it marketing, not customer marketing. But internally, advocating the importance of customer marketing is something I have and am constantly working on. From there, I find who I can partner with. So who has mutual interests to build something up until I have the metrics to prove the effort. So one example, back to the user community. When I started, I was asked to launch a user community almost immediately. And my supervisor understood the importance of that. And she asked me to run with it, find a vendor. When it came down to executive approval and buy-in for funding, the initiative really fell flat. And the executive team, we called the E team, saw that we had like a quote community on Facebook that's an organic community that our users created and thought that was sufficient. So I made an effort to build up enough trust to get added as an admin in that Facebook group and really started driving all of our users that I could to that Facebook group. And we saw over 150% growth within a year with equally impressive engagement metrics. So people weren't just passive observers in there, they're actually talking in there. I also led to building a Slack channel to pass over all the information gleaned from that community. I did kick out all of my internal employees because it became too much. But by streamlining that through the Slack channel, it really built up that community need and effort, and people were able to see, look, we really need something where we can suppress those negative comments, where we can connect them to support when they really need to be. And so we are in the process of building out our company run community right now.
It's really interesting to hear your perspectives on that. And as I hoped, we share things in common, and then we have different perspective too, because our businesses are different and we're in different stages of kind of evolution on our teams, right? Resources for me I always tell my team too, resources are kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because with resources comes a lot of responsibility and extra work, right? So be careful what you ask for a little bit. I think what I've laser focused in on is what can we accomplish with who we have and the dollars that we have on the programs, right? But I think the overall guiding kind of principle is it's all about customers and their willingness to work with us on co-marketing activities. So the people in my team, they kind of do two things, right? They work with the field to enlist and recruit customers for advocacy activities. And then in turn, then they go do those things together. So it's either case studies, video testimonials, event participation, analyst discussions, the like, right? So we know all those other downstream activities, but it's twofold. So I think one real good measure of whether my team feels like I need more resources or not is how's it going on the customer recruitment front? Like, how many customers do we have that are willing to do things with us that we can't scale to create content for, right? Because that's an easy forcing function. If I have 100 customers that want to participate with us in some sort of co-marketing activities, and I can't scale to cover half of those, well, clearly then I need a resource, right? And I've always been pretty successful in having that conversation with our executives, because that's the gold, right? We want customers to work with us in these activities, and we have to be able to scale to cover that. If there's more appetite from the customer, then that's something that I think signals to me that resources are required. So at least it's how I've always thought about it. But okay, well, excellent, really interesting conversation, guys. Should we shift now? Let's talk a little bit about stakeholders, right? And Annalisa, we'll come back with you with this question, but you just kind of started to mention how you work with the field and educating your organization on what customer marketing really even is, right? So, but partnering for success is super important. So the question is, cross-functional buy-in is crucial for the success of customer marketing, right? We know that, but how do you get that buy-in from other departments, and what are some of those tips that you've uncovered?
Yeah, so I've found that it's really hard for me at this organization, but the place that I found the most success is, again, just aligning myself with somebody where I can find a mutual goal that we can accomplish. If people aren't caring and that common goal isn't working, I try and find somewhere where I can provide value to them. So I'll go with another example. I had a bit of a hard time tapping into my CSM team to kind of help me find and recruit more advocates and happy customers. So I launched a grassroots campaign of customer gifting, where I provide gifts when the CSM hears about something like a job promotion, a promotion to a Filevine admin, the welcoming of a new family member, condolences for the loss of a family member. And so this makes them look amazing because I send it from them. They're always very happy about that. And then I use that as kind of my foot in to build a stronger relationship with those CSMs so that they'll actually hear me out and follow some processes that I put in front of them to help identify new advocates.
That's so interesting, Annalisa, and the different experiences that you have at different organizations too. In a former role, I had a very similar experience. At HackerOne, actually, I have a lot of cross-functional champions, which has been, pretty wonderful. Primarily, they come from the customer success organization and the account management team. Although I end up with pretty strong support from sales enablement and RC team as well. And I think they do it between themselves, which really sort of helps me. And so one, interesting experience recently was one of our CSMs got onto a public Slack channel, a public internal Slack channel, and shared a little PSA on how customer advocacy activities that one of her customers had been involved with led to that customer reaching out to her, talking about what other customers were doing, wanting to make more connections. That led into a product expansion conversation. And so getting her to support the efforts that I have and tell the story have been really critical. I set meetings with a few different teams on a biweekly or a monthly basis, specifically within account management who manage our internal sales, to make sure that I'm planning for sales efforts correctly, that the customer assets that I'm creating are being shared with her team at the right time, that they really understand the CTAs and the segments to reach. So, I'm supporting all of their expansion efforts. And then demand gen too. I've worked team. What we found is that there's a lot of content on that team being created that's relevant for certain segments of our customer base. And so we join forces, streamline messages, get the right information with a consistent voice out to customers that even our prospects are seeing. And that also saves time, which is a nice little bonus.
Yeah, I love getting time back. So at Dell, thanks for sharing that, guys. At Dell, it's really about partnering for success, I'd say, for us with the field, right? Because we need those nominations. We need to know where those happy customers are. Lots of big enterprise accounts, but within those organizations, there's so many different respective customers themselves that could become advocates, not just the brands, the people, right? So we lean so heavily on the field, and I know you guys do too, but for us, in terms of partnering for success and showing value, we've experimented this last year with kind of the legal agreement that we produce, and having customers sign off on the legal T's and C's, right, is super important, and that's often a barrier. So we've worked really hard with our field sellers to insert the legal kind of positioning at the start of the deal. So as opposed to field goes sells product, wait 6 months until you have implementation and a happy customer. What we would rather do is open that conversation earlier at the time of the sale, that we're interested in co-marketing activities, but we don't want to just tell the rosy, beautiful picture at the close of the implementation. We'd rather be with them throughout the course of their experience and then kind of understand their pain points and document those and share those in some way with some of our other users and other customers in the community, right? So getting the field bought in on those exercises has been interesting. I would say one way to really light it up is providing peer-to-peer kind of customer reference activities for your field sellers, right? They want to take those customers and partner them up with their other customer prospects to provide that credibility. And there's no better way to provide credibility than have a customer who's going through an implementation that's willing to talk that through with another prospect, right? So we found a little success in doing that as well. But all right, so shifting gears again, measuring success. And I love this section because, I don't know, I'm kind of nerdy. I really love key performance indicators. I love measuring kind of how the work that we do performs. I like adding value back to the business. So the question, I guess, for the group, and I'll go first, is what are your top KPIs for your customer marketing program at your organization? And for me, I kind of measure it in two ways. I think about the pipeline, right? So we're creating assets in mainly we do a lot of things and a lot of activities with customers, but the lion's share of what we spend our money on is creating case studies, creating video assets, creating social digital copy and content and creative that then gets reach. So I'm really keen to show how many assets are in the pipeline at any given time, right? And then on the other side of that, once we create those assets, how do they perform? Like, what's the reach? We have some blended metrics that we've put together that quantify engagement on our social channels, and then also Dell.com. And so the assets we create, what is that exposure and what does that engagement rate look like? That's really important. And then one other really big KPI for us is, how does the field then in turn use the content we create, right? Are they downloading that content? Are they sharing that with other prospective customers? Because if they do, and that helps close a deal, then I would like to calculate that that's influencing revenue, right? So that's another big key performance indicator for me in my program. But Annalisa, maybe you have different experience. How do you measure success at your organization?
No, so mine's pretty similar. The number one for me is acts of advocacy. So how often people are completing the reference calls, case studies, speaking events, etc. I structure my department OKRs around acts of advocacy to show net new assets, and then layer that down to how we're supporting other departments like demand gen, performance marketing. We're just barely getting started on a very structured sales enablement type of program here. So one thing that I am looking at is having better insight into how well my assets are performing. We'll get there. And then also another thing, my role is kind of heavy on events. So some KPIs there as well are like customer CSAT on our CAB, our regional user groups, things like that.
So I'll jump in here. For HackerOne, again, pretty similar. We're looking at the same sort of things, reach, acts of advocacy, a couple other things that we track, MQLs. So what are we influencing the MQLs that are events or, online advertising where we feature customers. And then on the communication side, which is our PR and media team, there are some customer supported PR initiatives. And so we look at, what's the coverage that we're getting in top tier media when we're referencing customers. And then is our customer featured social media content driving engagement.
That's awesome. I love hearing the different examples and how you guys approach it. All of that stuff.
Yeah, I jotted down some notes from you too.
No, it's so cool because all of that stuff is success, right? And it's just kind of like you have to hone in on what are your top KPIs. But as I'm hearing you guys talk, I'm like, yeah, it's a really important one too, right? So there's so many. But I think, the upshot, at least for me, the key takeaway has always been just pick the ones that you want to focus on in the given moment. Make sure you can track them somehow and then share that with your stakeholders so that everybody knows where you're headed and how you're performing. And then over time, you can shift, right? Like, so maybe next year I won't focus so much on engagement. I would focus instead on top tier media placement or something like you're doing, Elizabeth. I think it's okay to evolve your programs. And it's good to have different focus areas for your team and keep them agile too. So I think all that stuff's really interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the people because, talent in your organization and making sure your team is structured for their careers and the growth opportunities, I think is super, super critical to our success. And so Annalisa, I'll ask you the question, how does your team structure, right, position you, yourself, or the people that you'll hire for success in their careers?
Yeah. So Filevine is barely leaving the startup to scale up phase in tech. So, but it's still kind of more startup in terms of operations. So there's always a lot to be done and lots of room to raise your hand for stretch projects. And I've done that myself here. And then I always like to make sure that there's ample opportunity for people on my team to select which projects interest them, so that they can either take on tasks that are a challenge and a stretch or stay in the realm that they feel the most comfortable in, because I know that success to everybody is different. Some people like to stay and really hone in on that one area. Some people like to expand and learn a lot more. What about you, Elizabeth?
Yeah, so, for us, customer marketing is really visible and valued at HackerOne, which is, I'm jealous. Makes it a great place to be. It does. And because we do a lot of everything, everyone kind of has an eye on it. So the opportunity for growth is huge because you are making different connections with different departments and learning what everybody else in the business is doing. I think a successful career at HackerOne and growth is, really strategic thinking, understanding how to report and measure value. Another big benefit at HackerOne is that the company is really invested in ongoing education. So if there's something that I think will help me learn or grow, it's a discussion the company is always willing to have. On a broader kind of note, there was recently an article posted on LinkedIn that said customer marketing is the third fastest growing title on LinkedIn. And I think that's pretty interesting. So it's, it's a good spot to get into and then tap into the community like, we're doing here today. So yeah.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that about customer marketing title and the growth in that industry, but that makes a lot of sense to me. I think it used to have so many different names, right? And maybe it's just now becoming more unified as customer marketing. It's fascinating though, and I think there's such a huge upside for it. At Dell, with my team and the size, when I formed the team, I took care to create kind of a substructure because I have 12 different people, so I needed a leadership kind of a leadership level. And so I formed a leadership staff, and so kind of narrowing the scope and then giving leadership opportunities to each of those respective people for the other folks in the organization. And I thought that was really important. But then you also mentioned stretch activities, other things. There's always so many things we can do to better connect what my team does into, say, like the analyst team, into the PR team, into the social media team, right? Into the field marketers. So there's so many different cross responsibilities, and pretty much everybody on my team has some exposure opportunity to other organizations. So that's been really fruitful too. And then mixing it up, I would say, like, I kind of shuffled the deck, gave people opportunities to work on different product sets, expand their skills and their subject matter expertise in different products in the tech space. And that was also very interesting for a lot of folks too. So I think just keeping it fresh, right? You can mix and match on the products they support, but then additionally give them other cross responsibilities, and then just having a good ongoing dialogue about career. I know we all have performance cycles and we have coaching and the like, but that I think is just so key. So, all right, well, we're almost wrapping here. So let's just do our final kind of closing round if we can, and maybe a lightning round of questions for each of you guys, and then we'll kind of close. But what's the number one tip, Annalisa, we'll start with you, for customer marketers that you'd leave us with today?
Yeah, so relating back to Elizabeth's comment of customer marketing being one of the top fastest growing titles, is I do see a lot of people in the customer marketing communities asking for advice because they're new to customer marketing. They want some of that information from people who are more tenured in it. So I'm speaking to the new people. If you're not already, ensure that you're tracking every act of advocacy. So like we mentioned before, the full scope. If you can't track customer reference calls, I have a hard time with that. It's a little bit of a wild west here. Make sure you track everything else that's in your control. So case studies, speaking events, everything like that. This really sets you up for excellent things like reporting those metrics to the leadership team, starting some things like launching customer rewards or rewarding top customers, helping the team understand customer marketing and how much the customers do for you to avoid things like customer ask fatigue, setting standards to ensure you're diversifying content generated or customer generated content, and like so much more. I think that is like the very baseline of something that you should do immediately.
Hey, Elizabeth, what's your last tip for the group today?
Yeah, so mine would be really, I mentioned this a few times, outline your goals and priorities and sort of stay kind of relentlessly focused on them. You get pulled into a lot of things, especially if you're a new or small team. So keep that strategic plan handy, map back to it as new initiatives are introduced. Totally normal to rework the plan as you move through the year. But if you can always sort of stay focused on the main goals and the actual priorities, you'll set yourself up for success.
Some really good ideas there. I think for me, the number one takeaway is it's kind of a cliche, but I had a mentor say it to me years and years ago, and I always think about it as do what you do best and outsource the rest, right? And so I think there's so much that we have to tackle, but we safeguard those customer relationships, and that's super precious. So being able to prioritize the asks of the customers and then determine what my team's going to do is super important for me, because there's only so many things that we can do, but we can do them better than others. And then where do I pull in my product marketing peers? Where do I pull in the field marketing peers? Where do I pull in the social media teams to lead out on things once we have a customer kind of solidified to do some advocacy kind of activities? So I've learned that over the years, and I think I always lead with that kind of in mind. But all right, well, that's kind of it for today. I'd like to say thank you to PMA, right, for allowing us to have this great discussion today. I'd like to say thank you to Annalisa and Elizabeth. You guys, it's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you and learning from you guys. And also thank everyone who tuned in today and had a chance to listen. And I look forward to the next session, and we'll see you guys next time. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.